this event. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Section on Science and Technology Virtual Brown Bag Series #1. Just quick disclaimer, this event is recorded with the consent of the author, so it might be used later on for social media posting and so on. So just wanted to let you know. Again, welcome. This is our first virtual brown bag series. My name is Marc. I'm the chair of the section on Science and Technology in Government, and I'm also an associate professor at UMass Boston. And STIG is hosting this virtual brown bag series as a informal platform where our members and other section members can meet and have a informal but interesting conversation with the scholars and practitioners that our members would like to meet. And the typical format is that we invite the guests to speak for the first 15 to 20 minutes, and then about their recent work. And after that, we'll open the floor for any questions and comments and for discussions from our members. And just a few ground rules to keep our online environment manageable. Please refrain from asking questions until the speakers has finished speaking in their 15-20 minutes time they're given, just to keep it manageable. And when you'd like to speak in the Q&A, please raise your blue hand, right? And then I'll unmute you, and then I'll let you speak and ask questions. So that's the basic ground rules. Actually, the desk here in the back is where my daughter actually takes her Zoom sessions for her classes. And I get to listen to the entire class. I'm learning some Spanish and singing and creative writing, but I'm learning, wow, the teachers are so good at managing their Zoom environment. And I realized I've been so soft in my own classes, so I can get some ground rules going, and I'm using some of that here today too. And just joke aside. Today, it's really great that we have the first guest would be Drs. Marc Holzer and Dr. Aroon Manoharan. I think, a lot of STIG members who study e-government will all know their names. Dr. Holzer is the founding dean of the School of Public Affairs and Administration at Rutgers University. And he's now currently a distinguished professor at the Institute of Public Service at Suffolk University. And Dr. Aroon Manoharan is associate professor of public policy at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And so he's a colleague of mine at the same institution, and both speakers are from the greater Boston area. And today, together, along with Dr. Zim Melitsky, they've published a book titled E-Government and Information Technology Management, Concepts and Best Practices. So we'll hear from the authors about their recent book, and then after that, we'll open the floor for discussion. So Aroon, would you like to start? Share, if you have a slide, you want to share the screen?
Sure, Michael. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Let me just get this. Okay. Can you see that, Michael? Can you see? Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Our book is titled E-Government in Information Technology Management, Concepts, Best Practices. This is a textbook focused on for courses on e-government, any courses related to e-government and technology in public sector. So the reason we wanted to start this project was because there was this increasing need for public sector employees to be trained in relevant IT skills. My research has primarily looked at e-government and technology management for many years. And in my research, I found that administrative capacity and knowledge of e-government among the IT employees is a very important factor for program success. So that's another thing I look at, the success and failures of IT programs. Why are some IT projects more successful than others, especially if you look at public sector IT projects. The failure rate of IT projects is probably it's very high. In fact, only about 20 to 30% of e-government projects can be termed as successful. And research has shown that a large part of this also comes back to administrative capacity and the level of technical skills. And research is also focused mostly on, when we build in technologies and bring in e-government projects, there's a lot of focus on how citizens can accept these e-government projects, which is important, but there is very less focus on how the government employees receive these projects. What kind of training do they need? Suddenly they're just giving all these projects to work on. So that's why my research focused more and more on the pedagogy aspect. And also there is this perceived gap between what the public sector workplace requires and what academic programs are teaching. And as I'm interested largely in pedagogy of public administration, I was also very keen on looking at what are we teaching our students, what kind of skills are we giving to manage, to run these IT projects. And also this is part of the larger whole public administration research that focuses on skill sets, not just IT skill sets, but there is always this focus on what kind of skills are we offering to our students. Yes, Mark. So Michael, I think we are going to go, both of us are going to go over each slide.
So let me jump in at this point. Just to underscore and expand upon what Aroon is saying, that there may not be enough of a skill basis within public administration teaching, sense that the curriculum, despite what NASPA has been trying to do, I think follows some very old models. And we wonder, and our survey research in terms of curriculum has shown that the curriculum moves only slowly. So, so on the one hand, you may have a deficiency in technological skills. On the other hand, we may have a deficiency in terms of the appreciation as to how the success of technology is dependent on a whole other skill set, much broader skill set that isn't actually taught to the people who are the, let's call them the technologists sense. So within public organizations, and you often have, let's say offices that identify as innovation offices, but really they are just dealing with data sets and mining the data in a sense, and dealing with highly technological issues without an appreciation for the full range of public administration competencies. And then you have people who are managing these projects in terms of an interface with the public, and who don't necessarily have the technical skills. So there's let's call it a language and a comprehension gap between the two groups. And I think that's reinforced by the problem that the technology people rarely have an MPA or an MPP, and the people with MPAs, MPPs sometimes are people who shy away from technology in a way. So we need to bring the two groups closer together, and we'll talk about those competencies and what we found in a moment in terms of other slides. So Aroon, why don't you go on to the next slide? Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, so yes, thanks. So as we mentioned, there is this perceived gap between what we teach and what is needed at the workplace. Academics tend to often focus more on the education over the training, and whereas practitioners, they lean more towards the training. So why this is important is also in public administration, because public administration can be considered as a academic field where the researchers and scholars are increasingly aware that they need to write to appeal to both practitioners and to academics, to scholars. So we want to focus on the competencies that are needed for public managers And there's also this realization that we need competencies that are broader than the technical skills, right? And this competency focus is not just in IT, but there's been a lot of studies on competencies in various aspects of public administration. For example, there's been work on HR competencies, budgeting competencies, um, strategic planning. So that also extends into the technology competencies.
So let me add to that. So the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, NASCIO, I guess NASCIO, has identified competencies, and this is part of some research that Alan Shark, colleague of ours and the head of the Public Technology Institute, has done. Those competencies don't start off with technology or mastery of technology, but those are number one, communicator; two, relationship manager in terms of relationships between groups and individuals; third, strategist; strategic management, what John Bryson has done is very important along those lines. Motivator, because we know that a pillar of public administration is really the workforce. Fifth is diplomat. So you can't be arrogant. You need to really work with different groups, different people. You need to build bridges. Change manager. And in technology, that's very, very important because that changes very rapidly. Seventh is negotiator. Much of what President-elect Biden is talking about. Eighth is facilitator, in other words, helping to make things happen. And finally, these 10 competencies, you get 9 as technologists, and this comes from a technology group, remember, the CIOs, and 10th is educator. So when you look at that one competency framework, you're you see that it's really putting together, melding 10 different competencies. Now, just briefly, there's another technology framework that I've been developing, for a long time. That's sort of a meta-analysis of different competency lists and frameworks that are out there. And technology is not one of the major ones. It's a subset of one. So that those competencies are personal fundamentals, such as interpersonal skills; leading change, such as resilience and external awareness; leading people, leadership, conflict management, developing others; fourth, results driven in terms of accountability and performance; fifth, process driven in terms of problem solving, but with some aspects of technical, credibility, but mostly quantitative; sixth, resource acumen, which is where technology management finally comes into these frameworks; and seventh, building coalitions. So you see that overlaps with what the CIOs have come up with. Which means that to be a successful public manager, you need to master a broad menu of skills. Part of the problem is that our MPA, MPP programs aren't teaching that type of broad skill basis. And I've heard very prominent graduates, MPAs, MPPs, complain that they didn't have the full toolkit when they graduated. So you need to really master a comprehensive set of skills, and then we need to reach out to the people who come in through the technology door and say, okay, technology is good, but that's 10% of let's say the skill basket that you need. There's another 9 aspects of that according to the CIOs, or roughly the same thing according to the meta frameworks that are out there. So if we're after success of technology, we need a broader set, broader mastery the skill set that's available. So Aroon?
Yes. Yes, also another point is there should also be some integration between the courses, quickly related to this slide. It's not only important that we offer courses on e-government and technology management in public sector, but there should be some integration between those courses and the other courses, management courses or MPA courses also. So I think we just went through.
That's the meta framework we were talking about, but okay, let's go beyond that. We don't have time to.
Okay. So again, there's important implications for such a study because we can reduce IT spending waste with more focus on IT skills for MPA students, and there's also so what we did is we did a study, I did a study with a co-author, James McQuist, in 2016, where we looked at all the NASPA accredited programs to see their focus on IT and e-government competencies. And what we found is that there's really a big mismatch between what is wanted by the practitioners, what were the skills required at the workplace versus the skills that we teach in the IT programs. Right? Like what you see here is based on a survey of, we asked the practitioners, and then we asked the practitioners what kind of important skills are you looking for from graduates, especially MPA graduates, and you can see the ranking of the skills that are needed by practitioners. And then what we also looked at from the syllabi is for the key terms or the course titles, and we tried to rank them. So there's this obvious mismatch between what is needed at the workplace and what we teach. Marc, do you want to say something on this?
I think this is very much in line with surveys we've been doing over a long period of time. That the practitioners and academics look upon these skill sets differently, and yeah, I think Aroon's right. We need to bring them into focus with each other. And to me that means the programs, not just the accredited programs, but all of the programs teaching and MPA, MPP programs, which there are several hundred, need to pay attention to what their clientele really says they need, not just to use the curriculum they inherited, when they took the job. And that again, the problem is that the curriculum gets locked in, the courses get locked in, the textbooks get locked in, and we're not necessarily up to date, particularly in terms of technology. For example, most of the textbooks the introductory textbooks on public administration don't really address technology. Some of those textbooks are 20 and 30 years old. So we're not really responding to the environment. Okay, Aroon?
Right, so this slide over here shows you, we also did a survey of the practitioners, and what we found is these are all the skills that were considered as important by the practitioners, and then we grouped them into technical skills, project management, and soft training skills. Okay, so I'll just quickly show and I'll move on. This again is a collage of all the course titles from the academic side. As you can see, there's more focus on the ethical aspect of technology, the management aspect, the public value aspect of technology. Right, so these are some of the research goals. As my research on e-government and pedagogy came to a fusion, I really wanted to, along with Professor Marc Holzer and Dr. Jim Melitsky, we wanted to look at what kind of skills are we teaching and training future public administrators in, because they are joining an increasingly digitized workplace. And are we also, not along with teaching technology, are we also teaching the various essential perspectives of efficiency, effectiveness, equity, the whole public value aspect in implementing e-government technology, which is becoming more and more important now with AI. We need to focus on the ethical aspect of AI. So this is just a start. There's definitely we need to continue to match what is needed at the workplace. At the same time, make sure that we bring in the ethical aspect, we bring in the equity aspect, especially also the public value aspect, and more importantly, can we bridge this digital divide? Sorry, not the digital divide, but the divide between the teaching and practice of e-government.
So let
Yes.
me just add that I think if we look at the problems that the public schools are now having in terms of remote teaching and Wi-Fi access, see, equity is an increasingly important issue there. And that means that the public sector hasn't moved quickly enough in terms of universal access to high-speed, Wi-Fi. So, but that's just one sector of service delivery in the, in terms of education. I think that will really apply to virtually all sectors of service delivery. So, so remember, people who support government, the taxpayers, let's say, and the media, the elected officials, look on equity is very important. They're concerned with the efficiency and effectiveness, but it's much harder to communicate that to them. Equity is an important issue that stands out, and it sort of summarizes, brings together everything else. So that's just one glaring example of where we're not necessarily meeting public expectations in terms of the way service delivery is structured. So, Aroon?
Yes. So our book is focused on the topics that have been identified as important by the e-governance index, the e-governance performance index. So I just want to quickly introduce the e-governance institute, where we focus on exploring how information technology has continued to impact the productivity and performance of the public sector, and also how e-government fosters new and deeper citizen involvement with the governing process. So as part of the e-governance institute, we've been doing studies of e-government based on their official websites, both at the national level and the international level. These are studies that started from 2003, and the latest study was done in 2018. These are some of the notable projects, the textbook, and then the global eGov survey, the US survey, the Czech, and we also did surveys in other in municipalities in other nations. So the what's important here is we use the e-government index for these surveys, which is the most comprehensive e-government index. It has 104 measures in 5 categories of privacy, usability, content, services, and citizen and social engagement. So we use this as a framework to develop a book, because these are important, essential components of any e-government platform, and they're always looked at from totally individual perspectives. They are not looked at comprehensively. So we want to actually start writing on these topics, but then we also identified that there were other topics that were important along with these 5, and so we decided to have chapters on social media management, m-government, big data, open government, digital divide, and then we find our concluding chapter focused on the functionality and future of e-government. So, yes.
So Aroon, if you flip back to that other slide you just had there.
Yes.
No, the one had the additional topics on it.
Oh, the additional topics.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are addressed in the book, but let's just think of the very contemporary relevance of them in the last few weeks in the in the U.S. Big data. The election we just had, presidential and other positions, is certainly big data, and that yet there's a lot of misunderstanding and suspicion as to that's to that data set, as to the security of the data set, whether it's being, whether problems of problems of fraud are actually being grossly overstated without any evidence. But it shows that the public, a good chunk of the public, maybe half of the public, has is suspicious of big data, and or is at least is vulnerable to arguments that the data doesn't really represent what should. I think we're going to run into the same problem with data on COVID, that the denial of the utility of data on such things as tracking the spread of the of COVID-19 would be an example of that. We've also seen problems in terms of COVID, open government, from an open government perspective. So, are the data that the government is develop, or governments, I should say, are developing, really comprehensive enough to be, fully open, or is the data being manipulated? So in Massachusetts, where Aroon and I and Michael live, the governor, who is highly respected, just issued new guidelines for tracking, tracking COVID-19 and for rating communities. So by changing the definition of what the red zone, the most dangerous zone, might be in terms of communities, he managed to reduce the the number of dangerous of those labeled red zone dangerous communities, and therefore school systems, by maybe 70%. So this, to me, was manipulation of data, and not really being fully transparent as to the import of the data. And then we see the digital divide in terms of the schools, but also in terms of the healthcare system, where you have different types of access to, when if you're talking about telehealth, for example. And then there's social media. Some part of the population is much more adept at social media and communicating with local government about COVID-19, or about this with their school systems about COVID. And some part of the population is communicating with like-minded people in terms of social media, but really fanning the flames of rumors and such distortions of what's really happening. So these are all technology-oriented issues, or way technology is empowering the discourse that have to be addressed if we're really going to operate government on a rational, scientific basis, in order to reach the best decisions for for services that we've promised to citizens and others in the population. So these are very much contemporary issues, and in the book, what we tried to do is structure the book so that the chapters address these issues going forward, not just recounting what has happened as case studies in the past. So Aroon. I think you're muted.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of the book format, the book we have, it's really like a very comprehensive textbook, because the format is really helpful for teaching courses both in class and online. We have discussion questions. Actually, I'll just go on to this slide. So we have this 11 chapters written by e-government experts, and we've ensured that all the chapters are written with a strong pedagogical approach within the text. And each chapter has we have critical resources. We have focus on emerging trends in that particular topic. There is questions for class discussion. And now with online teaching, you can even modify those questions for and make it available on the discussion board. We have important keywords related to the topic. Also, definitions have been provided by the authors for each of these keywords. And some of the, let me just go back. Okay. So again, I want to talk about the first 5 chapters, which again are essential components of e-government. In fact, even before this, the first chapter focuses on the history of e-government. And that is something that it is helpful for students to understand how e-government developed and evolved, also with the development of the internet, the ARPANET. And along with these developments, you also had legislation at the federal level, which was helpful, conducive for the development of internet and e-government. So we start with that introductory chapter. Then we look at privacy and security, where we talk about the importance of having good, robust privacy policies. It's kind of interesting that even today, some of the websites and city websites don't have a privacy policy, right? And so we talk about why such a privacy policy is important, and what features are needed to be in a good privacy policy. And also how usable are the websites is what we focus in the next chapter. How usable and accessible are these websites? Because if they're not usable and accessible, it doesn't really help for citizens to accept e-government technologies. And then we move on to content. Content is very important because at the end of the day, the information should be reliable, up to date, and it should be, it should be very relevant to the citizens. So it is helpful if the website can have targeted audiences. So these are some of the topics that we discuss. And then we also talk about services. What kind of online transactional services can be performed on the e-government platforms? And then we follow that up with focus on citizen and social engagement. So this is like the first part of the book, and then we move on to the topics that Marc had discussed. Yes. Marc, do you have anything?
Well, let me just mention,
Yeah.
that the really the companion text to this is is our website survey that we've been doing with this, the 8th worldwide survey of longitudinal assessment and rankings on municipal websites, because that's where many of these terms are defined, and many of the things you mentioned in terms of the criteria for how websites should operate on this. So that's at publicperformance, one word, .org. But the text itself, is commercially published. This is the website, the website report you can download. So I think that I think maybe we should stop there, Aroon, and take some questions.
We've gone over time.
I think Michael's probably wanting us to
Great.
some time for that.
Thank you very much for this very interesting talk. And I think going through the COVID-19 and recent election, I think we really realized the importance and implication of having competent e-government, or at least IT infrastructure when it comes to, for example, contact tracing, or getting the votes in. The e-voting is just another field that comes to mind too, as we see what's happening with the voting situation too. And I think increasingly e-government matters more in national competitiveness and performance. My question, let me open up with question, and I'll open the floor for others to ask questions. You've been doing, several years on the e-government performance index and evaluations, and one of the chapters you talk about the functionality and future of e-government. What is your view? As you've been doing this evaluation, how do you see e-government changing? And like kind of looking at the kind of long shot, where do you see e-government going? What is your vision of e-government in the future? And how does it look like? And there, what plays a key role in making the e-government successful and effective. I know some say it's AI, some say big data. There are many different, I think we don't call it e-government anymore, it's smart government, and there are many different names now kind of branching out. What do you envision as the future of e-government, and what will increasingly play an important role in future e-government? Let me just open with that question.
So Aroon, do you want to go first?
I know it's a big question, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, in my opinion, I think this whole AI is going to be the big thing. So we need to probably, look what e-government, what AI today, it's the same as what internet and e-government was like 20 years back, right? So in a way, I think if some programs have not really taught about e-government, maybe this is a good time to focus with bring in e-government topics with a focus on AI. And the thing is, we have to actually stop thinking of e-government as just one topic or one domain, because it applies into everything. All courses will have to have some kind of technology focus in them. Budgeting or HR and other strategic planning. It is important that they integrate the e-government. And I think social media is going to become an important aspect. So that's something I haven't seen many programs teach about social media and the engagement aspect of things, right? So I feel like it's going to be for example, the city of Seoul, they have this concept of ubiquitous government or we-government, right? So we have to move beyond e-government and probably look at it from an overall perspective of interacting with the citizens. How can citizens also be a part of producing some of these services online, right? So definitely one course is not sufficient. We need to have at least a concentration in the MPA program, at least 3-4 courses.
And let me add to that. I think the problem that we're going to run up against is that other organizations may run away with this and represent themselves as really producing e-government or e-government services, and but not through government, or not through not as much through the organizations that we relate to, the organizations that we're providing staffing for in terms of our graduates. So you've seen the power of Facebook and Twitter in terms of our elections. And what happens down the road if they start representing themselves as a safer way to vote? Since so what we saw last week was that the group of public servants, the secretaries of state and their staffs, down to the people counting ballots, that the micro level, let's say, are doing an excellent job. But what happens when an organization, network, social media, or otherwise comes along and says, well, they've got a different way of doing it, but they're representing this as a sort of a commercial venue, but not they're not really representing the values that we see transmit through government that really can oversee and control these processes. So it could eventually wind up being a competitive relationship, and I'm only using voting as one example, but let's say they represent themselves as being able to issue permits more efficiently and trying to bypass government. So unless we really have graduates who can master these technical skills, and as well as the 9 other areas, let's say, of competencies that the CIOs have identified, or that we see in this meta framework, I think we risk losing chunks of what we're what we're offering through the public sector. So so when thinking about it, there's a danger here, in a sense, that the technologist will take over, but without the values framework that we are trying to communicate to to our people as well. So that to me is a big thing big problem to keep to watch out for as we go along. But finally, what I'll say is that the competencies that we communicate to our to our graduates are more and more important as we go along, because we're not in a situation where anybody can run a government agency, which is an old adage going back to the 19th century. We're in a situation where you need certain competencies, and some may seem to be more important than others, and technology may seem to be a very important competency that overrides the others. As I mentioned earlier, there are innovation officers increasingly in governments, but they're coming from the technology side, not a side that looks on innovation more broadly. So they may be skewing what's possible. And then the government becomes, in a sense, transactional, but without the value framework that has been important ever since the Athenians took an oath to transmit this city better than it was received. So, so there's a tension here that we had better be aware of. I think it's also something that overlaps into the MBA programs and the business schools, sense that their focus is narrower than our focus. And to quote Wallace Sayre, who used to be at Columbia, government and business are alike in all unimportant respects. So we have to say things are important, such as social equity, whereas some other organizations in our society are saying what's important is is transactional. What's important is efficiency. What's important is the what you can do directly through technology, and where they may be trying to bypass government. So
great. Well, thank you very much. Before we go with the next question, Aroon, do you want to stop sharing the screen so that we can see all the participants?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And also, Michael, there's some questions on the chat. So
yeah, that's right. So next question is Jet, and then there are two questions on the chat, and then Nidhi. So Jet, do you want to go?
Thank you, Michael. Great presentation, guys. I will check out the book. I teach e-governance down here at UNF. I've been doing it for about the last 6 years. It's an every other year course. And I agree with you that it's very, very integral for the next generation of public administrators. The question ends up being, I'm looking at this as someone who's going into the MPA director position. How do we align our, how did you put it? How would you recommend the program's transition from this core set that we're so focused on NASPA and the traditional skill sets and incorporate the technical? I like that you said that it could be possibly a concentration. That's for the larger programs, not for a program our size. I'm the only one that does anything with technology. But it's just, how do you get NASPA on board, get them to broaden their viewpoint of what public management means in an e-world?
Well, I think here you need to build technology in across the curriculum. You know, for one thing, don't just isolate it in one course. For example, I think NASPA is open to that. I think NASPA just wants schools to to really define what competencies they're trying to communicate. So NASPA is, in my opinion, less prescriptive than they used to be. So I think there's room for you to do it, but you know,
I like that answer, but my only question is, when you work with people who are relative technological troglodytes, I'm married to one of them, integrating technology is something that completely goes against their concept of the field, not only just their comfort zone and their intellectual property and their ability to design their courses they want. If they don't want to do a week about technology, they don't gotta.
If they don't get up to speed in the field, we won't have a field. I mean,
I'm his little C-Tech. It doesn't matter.
You know, I mean, yeah, we have a lot of, people who are afraid of statistics, who are afraid of technology, right? And frankly, they're working with elected officials who are even more afraid of that, who never had a course in statistics, technology. You know, some of them are lawyers, right? A lot of them are lawyers, but so we need to educate our professoriate, let's say. One way to do it is, to say that some things should be mandated in every course. Mm-hmm. I think, the technology connections are there for no matter what course you're teaching, whether it's a skill-based course, whether it's a politics course, whether it's a community participation course, whatever. It all has implications and connections to technology. So that's one thread that can easily go through that. And one way to do it is make case studies available. People are always looking for case studies, okay? So, but they don't know where to look for case studies. So these aren't necessarily on the, electronic hallway, whatever. But they're out there. Like, the GAO produces case studies. There's a lot of other agencies that produce case studies, and there are people writing case studies all the time. So technology case studies in this context could be easily identified and could be made available for free to plug into the curriculum, or videos, right? Or frankly, I use movies. I direct students to YouTube, but I just published a book of let's say 150 movies that we've gotten reviews on. So we published that as a free book. It's on that same website address, and some of those have technological implications. So you could open up a discussion of technology if you're teaching. Have them go watch Star Wars, or any of 100 other other movies, right? So that just let's apply a little imagination to them.
Great. Also, I think it'll be helpful to maybe do a survey of the alumni of the program, and so maybe talk to the students. What do they need? Talk to. We've developed courses at our APA program at UMass Boston. We've developed courses based on the needs of the practitioners, city managers. So sometimes it's nice to have a conversation with them and ask them what kind of skills can we offer you. You could start off also with probably inviting a faculty from another department. Interdisciplinary is always great. Maybe as an optional course, and then slowly as a core class. Another example is you can offer 1-credit workshops. Again, at UMass Boston, we offer 6 1-credit workshops in the MPA program, where we give really practical, very focused skills like strategic planning, public communications, Excel, GIS. So these can be some places to start. I think we have to somewhere start experimenting rather than just making this big change. So yeah, so yes, there are a lot of ways it has to be done.
Great. Well, thank you. I know we have 5 minutes and we have like 2 sets of questions. One, I can put the questions in the chat as one questions, and there are 2 persons, Xian Gao and Ray Lopez. The question, I think that could be put as one question. It's Xian asks, will the book have accompanying instructor resources such as PPTs or quizzes? And Ray, follow up to that, can you share with us examples of course assignments or projects in e-government and ICT management at the graduate level? Quick answer to that question.
There are quizzes. There are actually assignment questions and discussion questions available. So discussion questions and assignments that you can use. Key terms are there. So the information there is pretty very clear, and we don't have the PowerPoints right now, but we do plan to develop those. And some examples of assignments could be like, I asked him to evaluate privacy policy of a website, and then write briefly about like 2 to 3 pages about has it improved their trust of the website, right? So that can be one assignment. Another assignment could be in terms of accessibility, looking at the same website content on the PC, and then looking at it from a mobile phone, because a lot of citizens actually, their primary source of news of the internet is through mobile phones. Looking at mobile phones, maybe even looking at the hard copies, and do things where even these are simple things, but then they do make a difference, especially for those who are accessing technologies only through cell phones and not through PC or laptops, right? So this is one example. Looking into the social media and just more reviewing the social media do's and don'ts. The thing is, it's astonishing that the level of awareness is it's not really up to the mark. So sometimes just simple things like evaluating a website and write about the usability, that these itself can be a good starting point. And we have a lot of those assignments for each. I think each chapter has 3 to 5 discussion questions and about 2 or 3 assignment questions.
Great.
I think it's an excellent question. I think it's, it suggests that we need to pull together maybe more of the supportive materials for the textbook. So I really think we'll take that under advisement, and we do have those materials in different venues, but we should really just put it into an instructor's manual on IM for this, which will give you some, at least the PowerPoints and direction to cases and exercises and such. So I thank you all for the question. That's I think it's something we should do.
Great.
Yeah, it's giving us thoughts for the next aspect of the book.
Great.
Right.
Thank you for the question. And actually, STIG has been working to collect the syllabi for the e-government related courses, and we did that a couple of years ago, and I think we'll do another round of update from our members. Send us your syllabi so that we can share it and look at how you are teaching e-government. So I think we'll do another round this year and post that on our cloud and share with our STIG members as well. Last question from Niti. We have 4 minutes, 2 minutes. Niti, did you have questions? I saw your hands up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Yes.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you so much for the presentation. I am really looking forward for the book. And my question is somewhat answered in the previous one, but just wanted to ask if you think that your book would be suitable for an upper undergraduate level. At my university, we have an undergraduate course in public policy leadership. That's what I teach, and I'm interested in technology intersections. And second, would you be any time in future trying to come up with any simulations or case studies that we could have more interactive assignments for our student base?
I think it could certainly be used at an upper undergraduate level. And I think we're trying to identify the other resources that that you talked about. I think that the field is so new that that those resources keep getting developed, but we're not necessarily aware of them. So we should really take that under advisement and do a scan out there and see what we could bring together that enhances the use of this book, as a textbook. But it could be used upper undergraduate, it could be used graduate.
Thank you. And in fact, I'm thinking of planning some exercises if I get hold of a book on your compendium works website, and even make some assignment for students in future.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it can definitely be used for undergraduates. And again, this is another good idea for the next phase. Maybe we should bring out soon an instructor manual with the
That'll be great.
PowerPoint and the simulation.
Excellent. Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much. I would like to thank our two speakers today for an excellent talk today. It was very informative. We learned a lot. And we'll continue our STIG virtual brown bag series hopefully next month. And so we'll keep you updated on that. And again, thank you very much, Drs. Marc Holzer and Aroon Manoharan, for a great talk today.
Hey, thank you, Michael. Thank you, STIG members.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.